What's typically going to work the best, especially depending on your training schedule, depending on your sport, trying to cram in everything. Ideally, you kind of always want to touch on everything consistently. So the use of full body workouts are typically what people are going to reside to. And as athletes, ideally we're always working at a certain threshold where we're continually stimulating our nervous system, musculature to be able to reproduce athletic movements at a certain level of intensity. And so to make sure we're doing that consistently over time without creating injury, there's that delicate balance between, your load, your intensity. And that's why typically full body movements make a little bit more sense, because you're able to activate the CNS, you're able to train athletically, do athletic things, and then you would have more of like an active recovery day in between before you get back into another full body workout. For younger athletes, taller athletes, sometimes even older athletes, it really depends on the individual, but sometimes I would actually side on slightly less training day. The idea with the full body stuff is that you can get as many training stimulus in throughout the week without creating burnout, not just for muscle soreness and that sort of thing, but predominantly it's going to be CNS response and how actually explosive you're able to be, or what sort of output you're able to create. The problem with doing it too much, obviously this can create accumulated fatigue to the point where then maybe you have to back off and you're not as consistent. I found, and kind of what I'm going to recommend from this video, something that I found very effective. What I usually do, especially for later high school, younger university athletes, especially if they're just kind of getting exposed to this world of high performance, is I usually recommend 2 explosive days, 2 recovery days or active recovery days, and then 2 kind of full rest, steady state mobility days. And as a result from that, I actually, instead of doing full body workouts, I usually shift the emphasis from pairing explosive days with leg days, and then the active recovery tempo days with upper body work. Regardless if you're doing a push-pull-push split or you're doing leg and upper body days, you want to at least try and hit each muscle group 1 to 2 times a week. I've actually recently seen it where people will do their train, instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, push-pull-push, they'll actually extend it over a cycle of 2 weeks, and then they'll end up doing push-pull-push, pull-push-pull. And so it's treated as more of like a 14-day cycle where they'll hit pull and push 3 times each versus always only hitting pull once. There's a lot of different ways that you can play around with your strength training, your weekly training sessions, your weekly training routines. At the end of the day, to give a general answer, this is kind of what I would say, but obviously you would want to look at your sport, your discipline, your age, your training age, and your goals, like what you're really trying to accomplish. Because in a different training phase or preseason, off-season, in-season, those things can also look a little bit differently. And so with that being said, if you got any questions or anything I said in this video that you want to hear touched on a little bit more, make sure to leave a comment. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can, and let's get to work.